Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Commute Talk. It's the first snow of the year today, so that's really exciting because that means that it's officially Christmas. So, Merry Christmas, everyone. Uh, but today, Caleb writes in asking a few different things. First thing is, what area of programming do I think you should focus on more? And then, how do you become the kind of engineer that can solve problems at different levels of abstraction? And then finally, who do I think is deserving attention? And then he lists a few people like Casey Muratori and Mike Acton and someone named Per Wongtsen, who I'm not familiar with, but I'll have to check that out. And I'm sort of familiar with Casey and Mike. I've watched a few of their talks, and I think they are competent, skilled programmers, and they are worth listening to. And I disagree with them on some points, and I don't do things the way that they do, but I think that they're definitely worth listening to. They are perhaps I would say that they are a little bit deep in the game programming. Game programming is programming mindset, and it's good to have a broader perspective than that, I find. But I'm probably deep in some other mindset, so we all have our unconscious biases. But they're definitely worth listening to. And I would say anyone who can capture your attention about programming and either teach you something that you didn't know or inspire you to go and do programming, they are worthy of your attention, because ultimately you want to learn stuff and be inspired, and then you want to take those two ingredients and go and bake a programming cake, right? And as long as you're getting one or both of those things from someone, then do give them some of your attention. Just be careful that you don't slip into consuming more than you are creating, because it's an easy trap to fall into. So be honest with yourself. Look at the ratio between consumption and creation in your life. And do the right thing for yourself. So the other questions, what type of stuff do I think you should focus on more in programming, and how do you become the kind of programmer that can solve problems at different levels of abstraction? So this is a question that is very dear to me, because my big pet project right now is levels and levels of abstractions. It's an operating system, which is essentially a collection of abstractions, right? I think the best way to get good at working in an environment like that is to work in an environment like that. And I'm a big fan of working together with other people, especially when you are not like right when you're starting out, but when you slip into intermediate, where you get past the beginner stuff, then it's really good to go out and find mentorship, I guess. Whether it's explicit or implicit, it doesn't really matter, but find masters to learn from and work with them. And the open source community is amazing for this, because you can go and find all these different projects, and you can pick one that really speaks to you, and you can work on it and work together with the experts in that project and learn from them and get feedback from them. And it's just amazing. Like, this is such a huge boost to your personal development as a programmer if you engage with open source and you engage with projects that have experts. Don't just I don't want to tell anyone what to do, but I wouldn't recommend going into open source and just making your own things and open sourcing them, at least not when you're starting out in this world, because there's so much value in working together with people and learning from seniors, and you can get all that for free. And I mean, it's free in terms of money, but you have to put up some work, right? You have to make an effort, but it's an investment in yourself. And yeah, definitely that. So to become good at working at different levels of abstraction, what worked for me at least, if you would consider me someone who's good at working at different levels of abstraction, I do feel comfortable doing that. And what has worked for me is working at the different levels of abstraction, and then as my, just as a pet thing that I like to do myself is I like to write generic code, and I like to write container classes, data structures. I like to write systems and frameworks, I guess. And it's something that anyone can do. You know, you can go and you can make your own little container classes right now. You can go and build yourself a little toolkit of some type, because it's good to work together with other people, and it's good to learn how big things work, but it's also good to make your own little miniature models of things. That's definitely something I recommend. So for example, I've worked on the Qt framework in the past, and I've also built my own GUI framework now that's called libGUI in Serenity, and it's extremely inspired by Qt, more so in the beginning, and now it's sort of diverging into its own direction a little bit. But just having had that experience of working on the internals of a big framework that was mature and had all these experts that I could learn from, having been in that world, it's so much easier for me now to build my own framework from scratch, because I have all of this knowledge about how something mature works. So even if I'm sitting there with like a clean slate, I still, you know, I can draw from this understanding of how a mature system works, if that makes sense. So I definitely recommend going out and getting experience working on mature systems if you can, and anyone can really. And then taking what you do and making your own little miniatures of the things that interest you, because that experience will improve your understanding of the concepts of the language that you're using, and it will improve your understanding of the mature system that you're working on as well. Because as you, when you build a miniature of something, then you tend to discover these gotcha things that you wouldn't really see in a big mature system, because somebody already discovered these issues and designed around them. But when you try to build something like that from scratch, then you often have to discover those things by yourself. And that's really, really interesting, I would say. It's been super interesting, for instance, to build a windowing system for Serenity, because when you're using a windowing system, you take all this stuff for granted, you know? Like everything. You take everything for granted. Like, my pixels are just going to show up on screen, right? It's not going to flicker. There's not going to be tearing in the middle of a window when I'm dragging it around. And there's and like more subtle things as well, like figuring out how to avoid overdraw, and figuring out how to do alpha blending and all kinds of things. It's and you know, in many ways, when you see me working on Serenity, what you're really seeing is someone who's used operating systems and Unix for many years, and he's building his own miniature version of it. That's really what I am doing, and and I'm learning so much. And I do recommend this type of thing. That doesn't mean that you have to build an operating system, right? You can just build a thing that's interesting to you. People are interested in different things. And I know a lot of people are interested in games, for instance, like based on the people that you mentioned, I take it you have some interest in games or games development. So I think it's games development is in a very healthy place community-wise, because there's so much visibility into that community now. Like, I don't know if it was always like that, but like, I follow game developers on Twitter, and they're just talking all day long and sharing stuff. And sometimes I wonder if they do programming or if they tweet all the time. But I have to assume that they do programming too. But I mean, that's just a joke. I understand that they do programming. But it's really healthy, I think, that they are sharing. A lot of people, you see a lot of people sharing incomplete stuff and prototypes and things, and that's very good to see other people making prototypes, because it's cool to be inspired by finished products, I think, but there's another kind of inspiration in seeing someone's prototypes as they go, because the final product is very dazzling, hopefully, but the process can be just as inspiring, just in a different way. So I guess that's what I'm hoping to share with you all, my process. And I don't know if I would say that I'm worthy of attention, but if I've captured your attention for some reason and you're getting something out of it, either inspiration or learning, as I was saying, then I guess I qualify. But yeah, don't stick around if it just becomes entertainment. I don't want to entertain people. That's not what this is about. So yeah. And I guess you were asking, like, what programming things to focus on, and focus on the things that you're interested in, and maybe think about, since you mentioned that you want to work at different levels of abstraction, the thing that you're working on right now, what kind of abstraction is it sitting on top of? Is that an abstraction that you understand? Can you implement it yourself? What if you were to build your own thing that is whatever is the closest abstraction that you're sitting on? Many people are sitting on like a GUI toolkit or a game engine or something like that. Or if they're web developers, maybe they're sitting on top of a framework of some type, like some JS framework typically. Can you make your own thing so that you remove one level of abstraction and replace it with your own thing? That's the kind of thing that I find super interesting and super fun to do. And it can be a little discouraging at first when you realize how much work there's going to be, just sheer terms of typing and just figuring out how it works. But going through the process of figuring out how the abstraction underneath you works and building your own miniature of it, damn, dude, like, you're gonna learn so much if you do that. And I promise you that's not a waste of time. But of course you should be prepared that in the end you might not want to ship your replacement abstraction, but you might, you know. But if you're like me and you enjoy programming for the sake of programming, then you will enjoy doing this anyway. Yeah. So, anyways, I guess these are my thoughts about this. I hope I managed to answer those questions. They became a little fuzzy in my memory there for a moment, but I think I got to them. Anyways, so thank you for asking those questions, and We got the weekend coming up, so let's have a good weekend and celebrate Christmas starting officially. So see you guys later. Next time. Bye.